Walmart and
Yeah.
Hey, good morning, guys. Ken at Tortoise Capital. This is the check-in for Foundations Q&A, Sunday, October 29th, 2023. So I want to start with this one. This one has to do with, this is an exercise in coachability. Um, and it's it's asking us to look at 12 different trade-off decisions. It's a forced choice kind of a quiz. I'm going to use this in a couple of different ways. One of them is for self-reflection, and with all self-reporting instruments, where it says, "Hey, put yourself in a certain frame of mind, and then take a position." And what does it say? Now, there's a lot of instruments out there from psychologists. Self-reporting uh, has limits on utility. It has some. It is much more useful as a mirror, to be understood as a mirror, as a point of departure. As you're looking at what you said, and in many cases, it's built on some kind of model, that allows you to interpret on the basis of, hey, a lot of people have taken this and a lot of people have talked about it, and these are the insights that come from that. So if maybe I was this one, hey, what does that say? The danger of these things is that you infer more explanatory power and predictability than is justified. You see that a lot in things like Myers Briggs. There have been efforts over the decades to lend it the aura of scientific reliability and validity. It's my personal opinion is that that's kind of, it's mostly bullshit in the sense of like the like physics and electricity and circuit boards and mechanical engineering. It's not really that. However, the value of it as a self-reflective tool is undeniable. And because I believe a lot of our self concepts and the way we behave in groups with purposeful activity is influenced by who we think we are and who we think the other person is, it actually serves a powerful view of who we think we are and what we're saying. And in that sense, in the true story sense, it has some utility. As long as we remember that it's a mirror that we are holding up and that we are making sense, it's our reaction to what we see turns out to be where the value in it really is, as opposed to believing that the model itself. You can see where you are, sort of in a population of people, but the real important value is in uh, what it helps you uncover. One of the powerful tools that are available to us is called the Johari window. And the Johari window is an exercise that lets you think about yourself and others and how you see each other. It's like a 2 by 2. If I'll get this right, it's something like in this square here, in square one, it's who's doing the thinking and who is being viewed or making sense. In the first one, I think about, what do I think about me in my private space? So it has to do with my identity. So I might write something in there. Um, there is this one, which is how do I think, in group square two? How do I think others see me. And that's me projecting onto you as if I could read your mind. What do I think they think about me based on what I presented? So if we say something like, this comes from thick face black heart theory of China, there's sort of like an inside and an outside face. So first square is like, this is myself, this is the other. Inside this little category, it's like what I think about me, my inner dialogue, my inner identity. And then I make choices about how I interact with you in the public space. What I what I'm sending, what I think I'm sending, what I'm trying to project. So if the inner me looks at the outer me and considers what it is that I'm sending, I think that that creates some kind of impression on your inner space. And this is what you think about me on the inside. Now, the only way that I know or I can know about what you think about me on your inside is a combination of what I think I'm sending and then what you are displaying with your outer face. You know, in other words, you give me feedback. On the basis of those two things, I'm trying to come up with some composite statement about what I think you think about me. And that also then shapes what I think about you as I create a pseudo identity, some kind of representation of you in my head as an audience member, as a fellow human, what I think you are and how I think you're going to respond if I act in a certain way. And consciously and unconsciously, that shapes how I present information in order to influence you for behavior. You can see how this goes around and around and around and around. In thick face black heart theory, the Chinese philosopher Li says, or it might be scholar Lu, he says, we got some kind of true inner person that we may or may not know, and then around that we construct layers and layers of personalities, personas, representations, and that in the public space we're always trying to infer what is that guy's intention towards me, and what can I do to act upon him in such a way that he behaves in a certain way, that he goes towards A rather than B because of my own checklist of what's good and bad. And so there's influence going on in there. And so if you read the traditional Chinese philosophy on thick face black heart, what it said, the term black heart refers to this carefully hidden true internal dispositions, purposes, intentions, and that in the warlord area, people were seen as deceitful and devious, and so you had better protect yourself and your family and your village and your province and your nation against all the people who were over here who you had better assume were coming at you with evil intent, because that was the lesson that had been learned over thousands of years of written history and living and decades of living life. And so these layers of this onion skin were different techniques that you could employ to show them something that would cause them to behave in the desired way. Well, if the other guy knows that, now suddenly what you have to contend with is a world in which you can't trust anything that you see or anything that they say until you have some actual evidence that begins to allow you to reveal what it is. So thick face was the idea that you had these layers and layers and layers of protection. And the idea of black heart was that you were going to try to do things that could penetrate,
Hey,
yeah, could penetrate to
I
what
sent
they
you a message
actually were.
about, I sent you my contact card.
So,
I'm on the foundation's call.
oh, okay,
Oops.
I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. No. So this idea was that you go back and forth trying to penetrate to their black heart while protecting your black heart. And so scholar Lou, I think, if I remember, it's either Lou or Lee, wrote about that extensively as part of the of his work into human nature and politics, and he ended up being an advisor to, well, the guy who was one of his greatest students was a fellow named Mao Zedong, who turned out to be pretty effective in a world of cutthroat warlords. Well, if you think about how this applies in your own life, you say, how do you let's just suppose that we're going to have a meeting and there's you and there's everybody else going into that meeting, and you say to yourself, as they sit around the meeting and we're there for some, I have some kind of purpose, and intent and outcomes that I want to achieve. This is connected to trading in a deep way, guys. Don't worry about it. We'll get there. Uh, what percentage of your time in meetings is spent trying to figure out who all these guys really are and what their purposes really are, and how are they lying, cheating, and deceiving to try to get me? What is their hidden agenda? When I talk with senior leaders in the Army, when I've conducted research on that, and with business executives and just humans going to generic meetings in their life, 90 to 95% of their time, if they're in any kind of position of power, authority, or whatever, they spend 90 to 95% of their time trying to detect what the other guy's really about, what he's trying to do. The whole idea of true storytelling, by the way, is to say, what would it be like if you could go to meetings in which you had 90 to 95% assurance that everything those guys were saying was the best truth that they could possibly tell about the important stories that they are rendering, and that their intention is that the people may thrive? If you could go into a meeting and everything that you were about to hear was, you were damn sure had everything to do with truthful reporting of what their life was like, and so that you could rely upon that in an important way. How could, what does it take to build the evidence of that? It turns out that the evidence is because those guys are revealing vulnerabilities about themselves that you, of the kind that you wouldn't ordinarily hear, and it leads you to believe that that's true, and it resonates, and there's no ulterior motive. You can't, how in the world could, anyway, the whole idea behind true storytelling is to start with that position so that we can see where our stories collectively go. Now, we still have to go forth and be responsible for the results that we get for the actions that we take in the world. But one of the things that you get in our social groups is when you, if you want to work in the truth, what I have been finding is that first you have to have the trust you decide to invest trust in what it is that you're about to hear and maybe act on. And that we give trust carefully because we've learned in the past from life that when you speak the unfiltered truth in public, the consequences of that to you in your immediate life are not always pleasant. And so before you begin investing in trust, you start thinking about, well, how do I protect against risk of the truth that I'm about to invest, and the consequences of telling the truth. And then when I, even more profoundly, when I hear what a guy proposes is the truth, how do I act on that in a way that protects those who are relying on me to protect them? And even if they don't know that I'm protecting them, I'm protecting them anyway, as best I can judge from the unique point of view I am in the whole world, that I make judgments and am accountable to my own judgments about things that I do to act as a defender or protector of the weak. That's the dharma of a soldier in a very real sense, is the protection of the weak and the innocent against forces of evil, which I believe exist in the world, or at least forces that can cause harm. So in a world of thick-faced black heart, well, it turns out that being part of a tribe, so a true story circle ends up taking on the qualities of a tribe. You and your accountability partner, your spouse, your family, the people whose you've learned to trust. So in a true storytelling setting, the preconditions of truth are creating safe spaces and then learning to grow in trust so that you can tell more truths and take the stories you hear as truth so that you can act in the world and have an opportunity for transformational behavior. Thick-faced black heart. Well, what we're trying to do on this then is I'm asking for your feedback. That we got these 12 different trade-offs, and it asks you to take a position. And on the basis of that, I've answered how I think I am on my internal self. And then I've recorded how I think you see me. If the other is over here, and I know what it is that I project, I think, in my mind, right, always wrong, never right, but I can't help it, I'm a mammal. I think this is how people see me on the basis of what I've projected. What I really want to know is how you see me. Because if this is how I think you see me, if this is how I see myself, and I make decisions on what to present and how to project it, and then I think this is how you see me, I actually want to know how you see me. Now, when you tell me how you see me, let's just remember that there's how you really see me on the inside, and then there's what you choose to tell me about how you see me. What could influence that? A whole world of things. You know, does he really want the truth? He says he does, but does he mean it? Can I tell him the truth about how I feel? Do I want to hurt his feelings, or do I want to... all that shit, okay? So it goes round and around and around. What I'm genuinely saying is, uh, I'm going to treat what you tell me as if this equals that. I'm not going to judge. I tell you this, but believe me or not, hear me now, believe me later, I guess I'd say. I'm not going to judge you as a person by as good or bad by what you tell me. I'm gonna do my best on that as a human. I can just say that, but I'm going to treat those that the only thing you can tell me is what you do tell me, and I believe it's going to be motivated by telling me the truth as you see it, and I'm going to act on that, and then I'm going to compare what you say to what I think, and I'm going to change how I think you look at me on the basis of what you actually tell me, and I'm going to act on that. I noted that there were five. Now, this is where the power of this thing actually comes in. I noticed that there was a difference between how I see myself and how I think you see me. So there was a self-awareness thing and part of this accountability, and I think there were five different ways in which uh, what I think you see of me is different than how I see myself. One of them is, and I'm not even going to say what those are until after we do this exercise. Um, so this is what I'd like. This is how I'd like you to do. I'm going to describe what each of those exercises are, and then what I would like you to do for yourself is how you see yourself. What I would like to hear from you is, as feedback, is how you see me, how you think I answer those questions about myself based on what you've seen. And so the first one is uh, when making decisions about something important, and this is always about something important, and let's, you can default to trading. When I'm making important decisions about trading, I make them on the basis of the things that I know or the things that I feel. So if you're primarily a thinker, you'd mark here. If you're primarily a feeler, you would think there. Then I would like you to think, how do you think I make those decisions? And then plunk that into there. So go ahead and make that, if you just number, 1 through 12, you can fill those out later. I just, if you number 1 through 12. So on the basis of knowledge, I decide on the basis of knowledge, or I decide on the basis of how I feel about the other person and the consequences of that. So it's how those things feel. The second one, when I'm looking at the world, I am more concerned about how things are, the reality of them, the facts, or I concentrate more on the so what of it, the meaning that comes from the facts, the larger picture, the consequences. The second, I'm more about trying to make meaning, and that the details can be fuzzy. I'm not striving to be precise, I'm striving to make the meaning. Or do I care more about the facts than the reality? And then at any point, if you need to say, hey, need further explanation, let me know. Third one, I operate on the basis of, when I'm working with others, I'm really striving for clarity of understanding each other's positions, or I'm acting in a way to ensure that we have harmonious relations with each other, that I'm more concerned about being in harmony with you versus having clarity about what each of us is saying. I'm the kind of person that thrives on in orderly situations. So if I want to thrive, I try to look for things in which things are orderly. Or I'm the kind of person who does better relatively in periods of chaos, that where I create value is from chaotic situations as opposed to how well I do when things are orderly. What is my preference for the kind of situation in which I do better? Do I prefer to operate in orderly situations versus chaos? If I had a choice on how to spend my free time, I would rather be by myself reading, or I would be more attracted to traveling with a group of people that I hadn't met before to new places that I hadn't been before. Which one of those would am I more likely to spend my free time on in order to gain new insights, to raise my energy? By myself in a quiet place, comfortably reading, or traveling someplace new with people that I've never met before? Number 6, I would rather spend my time concentrating on the reality of things now to get a deeper understanding of how things are in this moment, or I would rather spend my time thinking about the future and the different possibilities that might develop as a way to inform my decisions. Current realities or future possibilities. I'm the kind of person, number 7, who would rather listen more than talk. Or I'm the kind of person that would rather talk more than listen for any reason. What is my preference if I had a choice? Like if I was in a group of people, would I rather be listening more or talking more? I'm the kind of person who tries to make decisions based on structure, reasons, rules, and consistency. I'm the kind of person that prefers to have flexibility in decision making so that I can respond to context. Which one of those? Number 9, when I'm in a group situation, I find that to be an energizing environment, that I get charged up. I look forward to going into groups because of the energy that I know that it's going to give me. Or I'm the kind of person who finds being in groups tiring as I try to engage with multiple people in the correct ways. I find that tiring rather than energizing. In terms of my self image, I see myself mostly as normal. In terms of self image, I see myself as kind of weird compared to others. I'm more like other people than different. I'm more different than other people rather than like them most of the time. When it comes to my emotions, I'm emotionally tough, meaning that I can take a lot of adverse emotional heat and still get on with it. It doesn't wear me down. I can still remain uh, focused on the task at hand. When it comes to emotions, my feelings get hurt easily, which changes my behavior, and there's an emotional cost that I pay when I'm dealing with adversity. I'm the kind of person, number 12, that thinks about planning ahead versus a person who prefers to improvise when it comes to engaging in the world routinely. All right. So those are the 12 trade-offs. And hopefully I've made those clear. And for your purposes, I don't need to see that unless you want to share them. Up to you. If you share them with me later, I'll take that as information as we work together to help try to craft that when A and B get together, that the deeper understanding we have about how each other sees each other might help us in the future in ways that we can only imagine, but allow us to work better together. We get to see more of each other's private self. And I'm going to trust you to tell the truth about that. What I would genuinely like to have from you, if you wish, and you're under no obligation to do that, is that if you tell me how you see me, that will give me important information about the difference between who I am and what I project to the world. As a part of my true storytelling process, I accept the fact that there's some internal part of me and that there are layers that I have accumulated over 66 years of living that I am aware of and some that I'm not aware of. And I realize that there are cultural differences and that when we're communicating, I make decisions on how to say things and how to present them on the basis of self-awareness, but trying to be as transparent and vulnerable and consistent on my external world as I am on my internal world. I know that that's not 100%, but I'm doing my best to move closer and closer all the time to tell the best truth that I can, knowing that however I send it is that you, as that person over here, is going to interpret it in ways that I trust you to do, and that you give me feedback about what I send that allows us to collaborate, cooperate, and graduate and everything and thrive together. So I promise that when you tell me how you see me, I'm going to act on that from the same basis that you're telling me the best truth that you can about how I am, and that I'm promising that I'm going to try to be a better person and take into account what you tell me about me. And part of that is I'm going to give a composite report on how multiple people see me, and I'm going to compare that to how Ken thought in his little pea brain how others saw me, and I'm going to compare the composite to my judgment about how I think you see me, and I'm going to learn something from that. Maybe I was right, probably not. But I'm also going to tell you, after you tell me how you see me, how I reported seeing myself. And I'm going to tell you in the 5 places where I think you're going to see me in a different way than I think you see me, or how I see myself. And I have been thinking hard about why that could be. And just the act of doing that gave me some important insights yesterday. And when we go into the Johari window, which I'll cover maybe next week, it turns out that the 4th quadrant, however that is one where how we really are, and neither you nor I know it. there's sort of something like this, how things really are, like some all-seeing, all-powerful. This is the shadows that are working out there that we're not even aware of, that are operating beyond our conscious ability. That if we say something like, we can only know this part, we can't even see that part. So here we are acting in the world of what we think we can know, and yet there is some deeper things moving us around that we're not even. So the Johari window brings to the surface the logical category of the things that neither one of us know about each other or ourselves, and which could actually be forces at work. What could that be like? Oh, I know. How about A is acting on B and C through omega are out here watching these two monkeys going back and forth, and then all the rest of the world is acting on us in ways based on how they see us acting, which shapes who we are and how we see each other. Like if I listen to the propaganda about you, that shapes who I think you are. And then I act upon that knowledge, or I'm influenced by it, even if I'm not aware of it. So it turns out that that fourth quadrant is a recognition that there are other forces beyond our understanding acting on us in ways that we do not detect for our entire lifetime. Oh, our entire culture, and you can't spell culture without cult. The weight of historical culture acts upon us in ways to shape what we are even aware of as choices, and that the act of true storytelling is a deliberate attempt to pull that shit up to the surface, report on it, act on it with feedback to try to start uncovering what are the things that are making me act in this way. How did I act truthfully? Why do I think I acted that way? Why do you think I acted? And how can I start uncovering? And how can I create a wedge between the impulse to act and the action I chose to take? That may be the best thing that I can do, is to act with courage and integrity is the dharma of a warrior, which is to live an intentional life with accountability, to say, I'm trying to discover who I am and how I'm acting, and I'm doing my best, but I am going to make every effort that I can to act the way I intend to act in pursuit of these purposes based on these values, and I'm going to take full responsibility for the consequences, known and unknown. And that's what I mean by courage and integrity. That I can only do what I can do, and I'm going to own it, and I'm going to be transparent as best I can about it. So part of that is what the Johari window in this exercise intend to get to. Now, I want to conclude this by saying, typically when you see this kind of trade-off decision, say, oh, what are my strengths and where are the areas, maybe not of weaknesses, but of where I'm not as skilled, and how can I do that to act in a certain way in the world so that I can get competitive advantage? If I know that I have these things and I emphasize that, I can act in a way that gets me more money, which is an entirely different motivation in some ways than the journey to self-knowledge. That's what rhetoric and communication came from. How can I use communication devices and methods in order to achieve my nefarious purposes? I want more money and I want more power, and I have no ethical constraints on how I'm going to act. And as long as my measures of effectiveness is how much power and money I have, then I'm going to do whatever it takes and say whatever it takes in order to achieve my outcomes. Well, that use of rhetoric then began to inform political theory about how people behave, and it leads you to the Prince, Machiavelli, informing guys in the warlord area of European medieval history. This is how you emphasize in your city-state power and money in the competition of warring tribes. And that if the first thing you want to do is protect you and yours, You better have power and money to do that if you want to survive. And then over in China, thick-faced Black Heart developed Confucius, but also the Warring States periods and the anyway. So when you see a world in which there is struggle and strife and violence and competition, you can see how people act in one way and they maybe believe in another way. That's sort of the foundation of all this. True storytelling is an effort to try to say, is there some other way in which we can behave towards each other and with each other? Well, let's see. Let's try that on, see what happens. So, it is my view, I've already learned so much just from myself, my inner space, and how I think you see me, that I'm genuinely interested in how you see me, so that I can make a judgment on my ability to anticipate how people take me. You know, and can I actually? The second thing is, can I be a closer representation in public to who I am in privately? That's a separate issue. And that what that means is true storytelling is concerned with ethics of how we are in the public space informed by who we are in the private space. Anyway, that's what I want to say about that. If you would be willing to, just take that on and notice what comes up from you when you say, this is how I really see myself, this is how I see people. If there's a difference in that, what does that mean to you, and why do you think that is? And is that intentional? And what are you doing about that? And how does that shape the choices you make and how you communicate with others? And how you communicate with yourself? And oh, by the way, that leads to that other thing that I put on the website, which was about self-care and self-compassion. I'll tell you that when I took that, I'm not very kind and loving to myself. And if I think other people are like me, I also think that they're not very self loving and caring about themselves. And so when I give people feedback, it's influenced by the fact that I actually think people beat themselves up more than they should. And so maybe, am I giving feedback in a way that imagines they lack self-care, and maybe I'm trying to be kind and loving with them as opposed to telling them without concern about their feelings exactly how I think and feel. That's a real choice on how you craft your communication with others. So I'm telling you, what I want to know is how you really see me. That even if you think I am emotionally sensitive, I want you to act as if I'm emotionally tough and that I can take whatever it is that you send me and I really want to know. That's what I say. But I'm on the inside, I might very well be a 12-year-old child whose feelings get hurt so much that my entire adult life has been spent in protecting myself and who I truly am so that I don't get hurt. Or maybe I behave in public and professional circumstances in a way that has required me to be emotionally tough in order to continue to make the judgments about the lives of others that I've had to make. And that maybe has changed who I am on the inside. Or is it the case that I have a professional set of thick skin that allows me to make judgments that affect the lives of others, and it tears me up on the inside, but I still am able to do my duty? That's hard stuff. So, do you think I'm a person who is primarily sensitive or primarily tough? I've just tried to give you food for thought that would allow you to go either way on that. So, at my root, at my core, how is it that you see me? Yeah, if you, what I would say is if you just save, I saved it as a text or as an image file, and I think the best way to do it is save that and then mark it up. I I could send you this. I'll try to find the and load it on Patreon. But what I thought was easier would be just to save that as an image with Snagit and then mark it up. And I would genuinely, I think this is so important that I spent probably 2 hours on it last night in what started off as a 5-minute exercise and added it as a psychological lesson in the foundations course. I think it's that important when it comes to excavating our inner space. And I'm just going to tell you that when I look at this and I pair it with the self-care thing, take that self-care link that's on the Patreon and think about what that says about these dimensions that you see there. And when I showed you what my numbers were on that in that Patreon posting from last night, that I am not very good at self-care. And so that means I have, in order to survive in the world, I've developed coping strategies of what to do with my harsh self-judgments, which have led me to certain biases and behaviors that have affected me in powerful ways in my my external life. And if we're going to be, the research that I've done on these kinds of trade-off decisions, I actually do this in a slightly different way than the force choice in the professional setting. I actually say, in a perfect world, in the unicorn world of perfect balance, I have found a way to perfectly harmonize the part of me that is concerned with knowledge and the part of me that is with empathy. But no, a part of me leans slightly more towards knowledge or decisively towards knowledge or decisively towards knowledge in such a way that I hardly even care. So there's really multiple positions about how far on this extremity that I actually lean. So I actually have this conversation with my leaders in the following way. I'm not going to ask you to do that. I just want to know where the first choice makes you lean one way or the other, because there's some utility. But the advanced version of this says, like I tell them, when we have a written lesson plan, sir, for a lesson where I'm teaching others, is that an order to make me teach it that way, or is it a brochure? Is it simply one way that I might teach it, or I'm free to teach it any way I think the lesson should be taught? How much flexibility and freedom as a teacher of others are you giving me, the teacher? And he needs to answer that for me, because he is ultimately responsible as the commander for the output of our school, which is the skill and the training of those officers. So he's given me a mission to teach them in a certain way, and he's approved the lesson and the focus and the effort, and we've designed a lesson plan that should get us there. And so when I'm handed a lesson plan, I want to know what he thinks about that lesson plan. Do I have the flexibility to teach the way I want to teach based on 25 years of experience and 24 years in the classroom? Or does he expect me to teach it exactly as it was written? I think I make a decision on how I'm going to teach, and I'm going to live with the consequences, but I'd like to know what he thinks I'm doing. because he's going to make policy decisions on how he thinks I interpret what he says. So I want him, it pushes him to define how much flexibility he is actually giving me. How much does he trust my judgment to teach in the way that I think it should be taught? So this turns out to be a really powerful tool for people working together on important systems. So I offer you that tool. I wanted to say all those things. And I'm sorry that it took me this long to say. Is it really 10:16? Holy shit. I'm sorry. Yeah, look what happens. I blame you guys. I was just getting started. Joe asked me, oops, oh, that's a little too large. What in the world just happened there? All right, let's try that. All right, Joe says, for legs, measuring trade potential for day trades, he says, I know you're always aware of things like 10-day high and low, but for a trade that is only intended as a day trade, do I include legs from previous day to measure potential moves? Do I include overnight gaps? Yes, you could do that, but in general, this is what I mean. In the new day, the previous support and resistance is reflect the size of yesterday's legs influences me. Like if this is day -1 and this is today, and I see, yesterday was something like this with the RL10. I'm not taking the size of that leg and then bringing it over here and saying, hey, this thing that's right here could actually move that far because that's how far it moved here. What I'm actually doing is saying that this was a decision point where it got that far and failed. So if I happen to be here where this was, yesterday that thing moved here. But if it doesn't go that way and starts moving that way, the first place that statistically it failed yesterday was here. So I think from where I am at the critical state, it could move that far. So I'm not actually like measuring all of these moves and then somehow coming and say, here's the composite size of the average move, and then saying from there it could move that far. I'm actually looking at where the turning point was. Where was the price physically that prompted the change in behavior? Yesterday it went from here and it got that far, and that's where it failed. And then it stalled right where it stalled today. Oh, that's interesting. It stalled today where it stalled yesterday. And yesterday it decided to move here. Yeah, but it's actually moving here. Let me try to clean that up. It's actually moving here, out of this circle. It's moving this way. So I just say, how far could it go? Well, yesterday it was moving up until it failed right there. So that's how I measured the size of the leg. So it's actually influenced by those. And I would tell you that you get a feel for how far these things move. But even more important than that visual is the idea of the range stat, which is the aggregate description of all of those moves for the last 30 days, and then we've broken it into 10 chunks. And so when I'm actually looking at this, I'm seeing that as there's the amount of risk I was taking. And until that next level, there's 3 of those into 1. And I'm basing that on this readout and the size of that box and how far it could go, and then where those support and resistance levels from yesterday project into today. That's sort of that aggregate. Another way that I do that is on that time frame, there's the RL270, which is the aggregate price of the last 270 periods. Wherever those dots were where it closed, that's where the 270 regression line predicts is the proper price. And it just so happens that I'm down here with the RL10 where the actual price is. And then I can take that risk box and say, yeah, it turns out that there's an imbalance of 6 boxes between how they feel and how it is. That influences me. But again, I'm using the risk box as the unit of measure of standard moves. Right? So if I backwards analyze my way into that, because otherwise, imagine if I was trying to do that live, I'd have to say, well, yesterday there was this size move and this size move and that size move. How far is it going to move this time? And if I were to try to dynamically integrate that in my head, I couldn't do it. Not reliably without second guessing myself. So the actual things that I care about was where was the turning point? And that has everything to do with why I use the RL10 equals price. I actually believe that. Those price levels where turning points occurred matter to me because I'm trying to express that distance in terms of standard units of measure. And then if I can use those as my risk and my give back, now in this scenario, if I can get an entry here with that much risk, if I could get the 3 in the middle and give 1 back, man, I'd really be happy. And now if it actually starts moving and starts failing, I can compare how much do I have versus how much I was willing to risk. And then my decision is, as a practical engineer, how can I get my original risk out of the equation and lock in the damn no lose plus dinner for 2? I do that on every single time frame because what I have is some theory of how the world works, and I have a hype, and that gets expressed in a very specific hypothesis about this trade and why I have reasons to believe that when I set up that frame, I get favorable reward to risk according to the theory, according to how I've set up the experiment. But the practical part of me says, don't lose money. So yeah, I have some theoretical reasonable target that's predicted by the theory as being a reasonable gain in this short period of time that I'm going to hold it. And during the time while it is reasonably moving along, I also hypothesize that there will come a moment when I can go from risk on to risk off. And if I can do that over 1,000 trades, then I'm going to be good to go. And I will gather the data from those 1,000 trades to go back and adjust my trade template according to continuous improvement and statistics. And that by doing so, I will leave the herd and the way they make decisions behind, and I will act in a professional way. And I think that there's one professional for every 99 herd members. Oh, let me tell you, I actually think it's 1 in 1,000. I actually think it's 1 in 10,000. Genuine professionals compared to people who make decisions on the basis, they think they're making decisions on the basis of thinking. I think they're making the basis of feeling. I also think that between the herd and true professionals, that there is a hobbyist, and then I think there's gamblers, and I think there's novices, I think there's journeymen, I think there's meisters, and I think there are genuine artists. And a gambler is a guy who lies to himself, who says he's somewhere else on that curve when all he is that. And he bullshits himself, or he's not even aware of it. And I also think that if I were to put some kind of percentages on that, I think 99% of the world that's in the market acting is genuine herd who haven't even thought that much about it, but act on pure impulses in times of crisis once every X number of years. This guy was told, buy the S&P, or whatever it was, buy the S&P 500 and by his dad, so he did for 30 years, and then it lost 50%. So he makes one impulsive decision to get out, along with millions of other people, and never returns. And then I think there's all these other guys. Anyway, that's why I rely on statistics, and I want to be around for 1,000 trades, and each trade that I make is just one of the next 1,000. So you need to know that about me, because I give you advice on that basis. Just being transparent here. In the video course in 2019, I said my average win is 0.6 based on your trade posts. It looks like I'm getting better. Yep. But I fixate and I act on it as if I'm at 0.6. No matter where I am on the actual curve, as long as my average R capture, and that's measured in terms of execution risk, as long as I'm better than 2 to 1, I'm good to go. And anything better than that is icing on the cake. And I just say I attribute that to luck, or the market is trying to tempt me with riches. I think there's some carnivore out there who wants me to keep scaling more and more risk on the bet. And I just say, look, as long as I can get that, I'm going to act as if I'm getting that. And all you're ever going to get from me is the amount of money that's justified on the basis of I can achieve 2 to 1, even though I may be getting better. And so there are some guys who tell me, well, you are such a coward that if I was you, I'd be investing more, and why aren't you investing more? And I'll say, why are you even saying that to me? Why do you care how much I risk on my trades for my goals and objectives? Why is my behavior on this? Why is my decision on how much to risk bothering you enough that you're trying to change my behavior. You have no power over me. I don't even listen to you. You go do what you think is best for you. You just let me do what I do. How about that? Because I know guys that will take a look at one trade that was, hey, today you got 10R and you could have had 20R. And if I could get 20R every day for 5 days a week, times 52 weeks a year, times 50 years, they act as if that was the baseline, and then they project that forward. And they say, I see you only risked 0.1%, and if I risk 3%, I could be 30 times larger, and then I could get 20 times 5, and they start projecting as if that's their expected returns. Do you think a guy who thinks like that can trade the way I trade? No, he cannot, because he's just going to blow up. So, yes, I behave on the basis of 0.6 to 0.3, not just for psychological reasons, but because I believe there are tigers out there that want to get me every day. I live in mortal fear of that. Oh, wait. Um, this one here. I was thinking that all core positions started as day trades, become swing trades, and then become core. Day, swing, core. That it always starts here and then progresses through success there. But sometimes, based on the foundations videos, it looks like maybe it could go straight from day up to core. And that I will often use those same symbols from day and swing. Yeah, except it's a little more complicated than that. I think of a core position as a swing that has gone so far beyond my initial risk that it's boring and mechanical. But some of the core positions started as swings first and were never day trades at all. Like, I've got a natural gas, I own some natural gas shares and some silver shares that the entire position was paid for, not just the risk on it, but 100% of it was paid for purely with markets money. And I put that in a lockbox to give to my kids with a 200-year time horizon. And I say, never, ever sell those silver coins. Never. Because those were a gift. So I inherited some silver coins from my grandfather, which he got from his father. And I'm never getting rid of those things. So, in some sense, the core, that's almost like beyond a core position. I suppose I should call that a legacy position. But there are some positions that I day trade because in my core swing and day trading portfolio, about 20% of my money is here. And I act on that on the basis of the rules that the core system tells me. So I know I'm going to hold that for a month with a 10% trailing stop. But that has so much relative strength compared to the other things that in the 40% of my money that is devoted to swing trading, I'm also ready to use that symbol as a swing trade on its own merits. Because I'm already interested in it and I have reasons to believe in it. And then anything that is on a swing trade with 40% of my money, which is always cash overnight, I'm willing to day trade it. Now, there are some things that I trade as day trades, like EWZ, Brazil, that if that trade is really working well, I'll hold it as a swing trade and I might hold it as a core position if the core system tells me to. But this thing actually goes in both directions. The relationship between day trading, swing trading, and core trading. The more important logic, in my view, core, swing, and day, is that 20, 40, and 40. So the maximum overnight risk, if I'm all in on the core, and if I'm all in on my swing trade, that's a maximum 60% overnight risk. And that's when, right now, this is zero. Unless there's a day trade and I have markets money and it says I can take the overnight risk, that's the only swing trade I got going on right now because it's bearish volatile. So that crap is cash. And the only overnight risk I have is coming out of that one because we're in bearish volatile. Any short position I ever have is always tactical in my mind. It's only from my day trading portfolio. I never swing trade from my swing trade portfolio short. I never do that. And my core position is never short. Next question. From the 5 days down, the initial target is back to the 5-day high. No, it's always like to the 10-day. When it comes to computing the reward to risk on swing trades, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days down. Whatever the 10-day high is, wherever that is, maybe it was here, maybe it was whatever that is, the reward to risk ratio for me is always this compared to that, 4 to 1. Now, when it comes to the actual execution of that trade, I'm trying to get the blue color on this. Yeah. And this was the frame. When it comes to where to place the stop, as I go up the stack, I know that this is the theoretical target, but all I care about there is where is the stop every time, and that's always a function of like support and resistance and R's and the distance and the timing. So that's always a tactical stop that's given based on where the actual support and resistance numbers were and where I could put, and what it comes down to eventually is once my risk is out, there was the PSAR and it got above my entry and I was able to get my stop to no lose plus an enter for 2. At some point, it's the Bollinger Band mean, or it is the PSAR. It is the southern skin of the dragon, the spine of the dragon, the upper skin of the dragon, or like a 1-day low, or a 1-bar low, or a 2-bar low, or the edge of the dragon, the spine of the dragon, the southern skin of the dragon, the PSAR, or the Bollinger Band mean. So where the stop is a function of what that looks like and how much I'm giving back, how much I'm keeping, and how much I'm giving back compared to the maximum gain. So that decision is based on how much give back versus how much am I locking in, and that's on every time frame except the core. The core is 10% from highest high, just because. Unless it was better than plus 15%, then it's 5%. But it turns out in the core position, if I'm holding 15% or better, it's a 5% trail from highest high, which is way wide, right? So, like if that was Tesla, and if it's in the core, and whatever, maybe it was, I forget what the number, 350, then that is about a $12 stop. But otherwise, once I get my risk out, where the actual trailing stop is right there. But in terms of the trade frame, when I'm framing the trade frame for swing trades, all it is the mechanical reward to risk ratio is the range risk compared to the 10-day high. And as long as that gives me, I don't know, 2 or 3 to 1, then it's good enough to get started, and then I'm adjusting the stop. Have I over answered that one sufficiently? Probably. Okay. Execution risk versus position sizing risk based on the mental state management or 2 to 1. Let's see. Yeah, I think I've answered that one. It's really my position sizing risk simply is saying, look, be 5 times smaller than you think you have to be. Whatever the logic was that said you could get long here, and that hypothesis fails right there. As long as I got 2 to 1 there, I'm probably okay, because I'm going to get my risk out of there pretty fast. And all I'm saying is, instead of calling that 1.0 and then deciding how much money and how many shares to trade, I'm treating it as position sizing risk. And then that means this is, if I made that 0.3, then if I get 2R, it's 0.6. And that's really 2 to 1. And that logic. So when you see me on you've seen recently sniper trades of the day get like 5 to 1. A 5R win on that sniper trade of the day is based on execution risk and R capture. Because I actually want to know on the quality of the trade frame that I put together, how much am I actually getting compared to what I was actually risking? So if I get 5 to 1, in terms of how much money I made, if I made that like 0.3 or 0.2, it's 1 full R for position sizing risk. But let me tell you this, if on a weekly basis, if you can net 2 position sizing risk every week, that's 100 R a year. So I'm concentrating on improving my technique on the basis of execution risk, but I am protecting myself, and that makes me be very aggressive about how small to make the risk. So I'm just making that, I am protecting myself against my aggressive nature by making that only zero point 0.2 or zero point 0.3. So as long as I can get on execution risk 0.6 versus 0.3, 2 to 1, that's all the better I got to be. But I'm better than that, if I'm being honest. But I'm not, I'm treating that as an anomaly. I am strictly trying to make sure that I can get 2 to 1 or zero point 0.6 and 0.3. I am just a real coward when it comes to that. Let's see the let me continue on.
Would it be possible that I can jump in and ask a question
Yes,
regarding
sir.
the execution?
Yeah.
You mentioned in a previous video that you would risk 60% of the execution risk and extend the MMRB, right?
Wait a minute.
So assuming your execution
Oh
risk,
yeah. Oh yeah. It gets even crazier. Okay, so on a case, and this is where it can get so damn dangerous. So as you know, that little pattern right there is the PSAR flip, right? And on day trading only, it's not unusual for that to be, in terms of the MMRB, the PSAR. Let's call that the PSAR box right here. And then over here I have the R10, which happened to be 1/10 of the range stat. Now, one of the things that just astonishes me is that about 80% of the time, 1/10 of the range stat, I'll be damned if it's not so close. You just can't believe it, how close it is. But sometimes, and I'm going to do it in purple, sometimes that R10 is like this. And I'll take that as 0.2. And the trigger that gets me out is always going to be that one. Because that's it's going this way, and when it flips, I should be collapsing dragon. And maybe that is that could be 0.6 of a range stat, which is, and so that tells you how much risk I'm actually taking. And my standard risk is $400. So that might be 5,000 shares of EWZ. That's a large position. And if I'm trading on a 3-minute chart, can you imagine a circumstance in which there could be some hiccup and for some reason I can't even get out to here? Yeah. So $400 is not a large number compared to the portfolio value. But I don't care. Well, it's not an efficient use of your capital based on rational. Hey, maybe this is the 1 in 1,000. Yeah, maybe. That could be. So I'm a chicken shit. You got to and that's why I say, what percentage of dollars per trade is based on your fear decision? And I don't mean that in a negative, disparaging way. That's the most important. That guy is the one that protects me against tigers. My rational brain is the one that says this PSAR risk box is the reason, is the signal to, instead of going long, to go short. That's my rational brain. I know that. My fear brain is the one that's protecting me against the 1 in 1,000. Because I've survived 40 years. I intend to survive 200 years. I don't know that this is, maybe this is where we get functional immortality with AI, and I don't know. If not me, then my son. And if not my son, then my grandson. So I'm respecting fear. Does that answer your question?
My question was actually a follow through in terms of the 2 hour battle drill.
Ah, yeah,
So
yeah.
let's
Yeah.
say your execution risk is $100, but then your actual
Yeah.
risk in the trade is $60. Would
Here's
you?
here's exactly how I do it. Whatever the actual signal to exit is, like if that's the signal that gets me out, the 2 hour battle drill is this one. The actual trigger to get out, the 2 hour battle drill is based on that one. Independent of dollars and all that other shit, it is purely, I'm betting that I can reasonably get to 2R, and while it's doing that, somewhere around 0.6, I'm getting to no lose. I'm getting to no lose plus dinner for 2. And then by the time it gets past 2R, now I can think about a second position because I protected myself against actual portfolio dollars lost. 100% of the time, the 2R battle drill. Now, my brother goes absolutely berserk with that, and he adds routinely 2R, 4R, 8R, 6R, and he gets 1, 2, 3, and 4 and goes. I almost only ever get a second position, and I'm already scared shitless. But I'm 66, and he's 57. So he's a young man.
If I can jump in as well,
Yep.
do you become more lenient with your no lose plus dinner for 2 in the second
No.
position when you
Nope.
added?
Nope, never.
So you let it
Yes.
rest for a bit as if there's a yellow box as well at the 2R position.
Yeah, and really because otherwise it just emotionally, and this is me. If I get the plus 2R, I am so happy and relieved that this is amazing. The real reason is I'm now going to get a sniper exit, and I'm really going to work the individual charts, like 1 bar low, half an hour loss, or whatever. That is really tight and focused. And I may be getting rid of the other open positions on day trading on 3-minute charts because I really want to concentrate on that. But when this thing gets past 0.6, not drawn to scale, sorry. So, that should really be like about here. My sense of emotional relief of locking in a 0.6, because remember, if it gets to plus 0.6, I'm locking in probably 0.2 or 0.3, right? So I have some little fraction. And then I'm not doing anything until it gets up to 2. And then what I'm doing is I'm trying to simply to continue to refine that until I'm up around 2R, plus 2R, and I'm probably locking in 1.75. And I'm only really risking that tiny little bit. And now I have my first position and now my second position. And that thing, if it gets me out right there and I lose minus 0.25 on two positions, I'm losing 0.5 and I'm netting 1.5 of my original win. Check or hold. You see that? And then when this thing moves up 0.5, and then I can get this thing, I can get this thing. Come on, dummy. I can get that one locked in. Now, on the second position, I've got maybe, call it 0.3. And this one at 2.3. Now I'm at 2.6 total. And now every time it goes up +1, I'm earning +2. And then that thing is just off to the races. Okay? And then I am such an emotional wreck that it's hard for me to get the third and the fourth position in because of my emotional sensitivity. And I would actually rather have two positions with two trades with two positions in and there's my 4 units of risk, my 4 bullets, and that's all I'm trying to get. That's on the 3-minute. And meanwhile, on the 30-minute bars, I could have 10 things cruising along because that's really my swings. It takes me 1 to 2 minutes every 30 minutes to make those little decisions. And then it takes me about 4 minutes every 30 minutes to go through all 30 of the things that I chunk, and make the adjustments and slip. And then I can only handle about that much on the 3-minute bar. And then every set. And then in the first 30 minutes of the day, I'm just trying to get started. And then there's the morning, and then there's the lunch, then there's the afternoon, and there's the last 30 minutes. So I've got 4 30-minute bars in here. I got 3 90-minute or 3 30-minute bars at lunch when things are quiet, and then I got 4 in the afternoon. Then there's that last 30 minutes of craziness. So that just works for me, and it allows me to be routinely behaving and deciding with so little risk on any individual trade that I can just make a craftsman professional decision, that I'm not betting my entire fucking family, pardon my language, I'm not betting my entire the estate. And so that's what I would say on that. Okay. On a Z3 pinch, %80 of the time, the channel is so tight, it's really. Oh, I know. Let me fix this. I appreciate your patience on this, by the way. Why in the hell? View. I can't figure out why this is. Um, let's see. Trade logs. We're almost done here. Let's see. Do I do any other what? No, when it comes to like trade logs, I mean literally. I use paper and a pencil, and I'm just tracking, each little, R multiple of it in pencil, and then there's sort of the daily aggregate, and that's just pencil, and then I put it into Excel for the daily score, and then in terms of trading journal, I mark those up using Snagit to come up with what the net was. So the hey, this thing risked that, and it came up, and it was a 5R win or whatever, and then I just record that, and then I keep those. My case study potential is really just one big. I got probably 20,000 case studies in my in a in a in a formula subdirectory, like under, it'll say trading, tortoise, trading, results, day trades, swing trades, core trades, and each one of them, there's probably 20,000 case studies that are one in PowerPoint pasted in there, and it says, hey, this one was 5 ring, and it says like, hey, 2023 10 28, and this was maybe a frog pattern, year, month, day, symbol, series, and it might be 5 little back and forth is on there, and it said, and the net result of all 5 of those was 5R. So that one slide, that one image, has everything, like the sniper trade of the day has everything. If it says 5R, then there's one, just an Excel spreadsheet for day trades that has the name of the trade that's unique to this, and it says, yeah, that was 5R, and then all of those, and then I use that to come up with the system portfolio picture, like the overview and the portfolio fund, and so that's it. I mean, it is very primitive, and any self imagery or self learning lessons learned and all that, I put onto the chart, so I learned that. So there are the trades. Then there is the dollar and number stats for expectancy. Then there is a learning journal which says, when I'm doing the plan, prepare, execute, and assess each day, when I said, and I review that, maybe there were 10 trades, 10 charts of pictures, the case study. And as I look at all that, said, well, this is what I did well on planning for today, and that's what I was poor on planning. Most of my stuff, this was very well planned or prepared, and this was, I didn't prepare very well, or I made very good decisions and I almost don't even care about that. These were some bad executions. And then I say, look, on the things that I want to improve on, I'll pick, these are the things that I could do to be better. There's 3 things I could do and 4 things I could do on a plan, on a prep, and now I'm going to pick two things tomorrow that I'm going to be better at. So that's my daily AAR. On the learning journal, those things go into the learning journal, and then I have like an action list of, I said I was going to do those things, and these are the ones I actually did. Did I actually do the things I said I was going to do? That's what I do weekly. So there might have been, there were 5 things that I was going to improve my daily. Then on the weekly, I said, did I actually do those things? And then monthly, did I actually do my weekly improvement? And overall, how am I doing? And then on the monthly, I take a look at the dollars and the numbers and the actions. So there's really 3 parts to my monthly trade. What's the portfolio look like? What is my expectancy rate? Am I actually doing the after action reviews daily and weekly? Am I following through? And monthly is sort of my reset and fix the neglected shortcuts. How am I doing really? And that's what I talk with monthly with Trader X. He's my pro money manager. And, and I try to just forgive myself and genuinely just start a new thing altogether. And that actually is important to me. The monthly is my long-term one because the core portfolio, I take actions on a monthly basis on the 20%. So I have to do that. So on the monthly basis, I actually have to think of the core, the swing, and the day trading. So the monthly is how I get everything completely reset and integrate the way I'm thinking about core, swing, and daily. And that's how I reset my brain. And then at the end of the month, any money that I made is officially mine, and that's where the 20, 40, 40 reset occurs. And I usually make more money out of day trading than I do out of swing and core. So this is where I take money out of the day trading portfolio and grow the swing and the core portfolio longer term. This is where the energy and the money is. That's where the value is coming to me when it comes to my overall, say, total portfolio. That's what I was trying to say. For some reason, I want to make sure that I answer that. Yeah. Now, for some reason, I know why this. So I got these as Joe's. The other guys that sent me for some reason, maybe I didn't save that when I sent it. I owe you other guy the other questions I didn't get to. I'm gonna answer those separately, and I'm gonna upload the written answers. They're very, I think they end up being contained in the answers I was given. But I'm starting to get a little mentally tired here, and I need to take a break on that. But I will answer those for you, and the creativity guys need to get their opportunity in here too. So, and I will give you an answer in writing also, Hamad, in the follow up. But we're 2 hours into this, and it's a Sunday, and we're gonna be reasonable here.
I'm
I
sorry to interrupt, Ken, but in
ahead.
regards to the question that I asked you,
Yep.
if you want to answer it just on Thursday,
Yeah, I'll do that.
doing the foundation a question and answer, that's fine.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not urgent, so just do it
Yeah.
that way.
yeah. I'm gonna do it that way. I started noticing that my explanations were starting to get a little clumsy. So it's clear I need to take a break. So so that's our 2 hours. That's a pretty good one, and I would genuinely appreciate the feedback on the that little psychological exercise, and then take the one on the self-awareness and self-care, and take those two. They're both on the Patreon site. That was really, I spent 2 to 3 hours on that last night. I was really profoundly affected, which is why I ended up having to spend an hour on that with you this morning. But anyway, I will send you the complete update to these written answers, and then I will give you on Tuesday the answers for Damien. All right, that's everything I got here. You guys take good care for the rest of the day, and ciao for now. That's all I got.